Hey there, everyone. My name is Dr. Travis Perry. You've been following me likely here, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, email, whatever it is you've been following me on. I am so appreciative of all of the years of just help and support on projects that I've been trying to bring to life for over a decade now. I want to bring a very big announcement to you today, and that is there are several of them that I want to talk to you about. But first, I kind of want to go back to when I first decided I was going to be a thought leader and public speaker and author. I was a financial advisor, and growing up, money was something of a conflict in our home. It was a stress point. I saw my dad all the time being stressed out about it at work. And, you know, grew up in a wonderful family, parents that loved me. They taught me wonderful values, morals, principles that helped to guide my life. But money was always this thing that I wanted to personally try and fix in my own life. So as I tried to find my way, and I really wanted to know, what is it that I wanted to become someday? What's my career? What is it that I really love doing? And, you know, I tried to talk to people about this. I tried to get advice and counsel, and I'd ask my dad, and he'd give me some good advice, and he was so patient with me. And, you know, it was very evident that I was supposed to go to college. And when I went to college, I actually was giving up a very big opportunity to take over my father's business and the family business and kind of run it. I gave that a shot and just really felt in my heart. And as I prayed and looked for direction, that was not the right direction for me. I needed to do something different. And as I was looking around and I started interviewing people, I asked those in my church, those who I worked with, even clients that I was helping to do their plumbing at their home. Like, hey, I really think that I would be good as an airplane pilot. I love it. I think it sounds really fun. And what's interesting about that conversation as I was guided towards becoming a pilot for years and years. And I told everyone after my LDS mission to Denmark that, hey, I was going to be a pilot. And actually on my mission, I would tell people about, hey, what do you want to do when you get back? I'm like, well, I'll go to college, or I want to be a pilot. It sounds so fascinating. And I loved my first lesson. I loved flying with my dad when he got his pilot's license. Just sounds so fascinating. But what I come to figure out is that, the life of a pilot for the first 10 years is really not family friendly at all. I realized very quickly that I really liked the freedom that my father had to come and attend my soccer game, for him to be the coach, for him to be a part of the community and church and serve in ways that, you know, a lot of other dads don't get the opportunity to because they don't have a flexible job. They don't control their time. And I really wanted to be there with my wife and, you know, a bunch of kids, and who knew, you know, when that was about to happen. I just wanted that. And I felt really close that I could be successful at business. I could be successful, and I can also have a family. I can also be a good dad. I knew that there was this possibility. There's a lot of voices on the side saying you can't do that. You just have to work like nonstop and be crazy about it, and then you can be successful. And I think that's nonsense. I think you can have it all. You just have to focus really, you know, on schooling or on your education, you know, your formalized or informal education, but also your technical advancement in that industry, whatever it is you'd like to do. And you need to have the buy-in. In fact, I think it's the other way around. Having my family support me during my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, my PhD experience, having them saying, Dad, you can do it, or honey, you can make this happen, you can achieve this. That by far enabled me to be the person I am today, but also to achieve great things. I think, you know, we think we can just go ahead and achieve all these things on our own. It's just no one actually exists on an island, right? We're standing on shoulders of giants, but we also work together in families and in marriages. That's how we come to this earth. Regardless of your beliefs, which I believe God sends us here on purpose to a family with a mom and a dad, that would be the ideal situation. Now, all of us get that ideal situation. I understand, but I do believe that is the ideal, and I think that we can move society towards that. So that said, I set off to school. I want to conquer the world, and I knew that it's not going to be a pilot. It just doesn't make sense. Their life is not accustomed to work-life balance. I have interviewed pilots on my podcast, and I found that most of them actually really, really struggled with balance. And it's very apparent that I made the right decision for me. And I'm not saying don't be a pilot. I'm not saying, any of that. But I do believe that there is a hefty price, and it's possible that I would have never even met my wife. It's possible I wouldn't have the beautiful family that I have today if I really poured myself into the Air Force and becoming a pilot. Who knows? Maybe I would have met somebody else. I don't know what God had in store, but I'm so grateful that he pushed me this direction. That was the direction for me. And what was interesting is I didn't realize it was laying the foundation for this first book. This first book, it was almost 10 years in the making. I had tried. I had written a PDF ebook that I threw out there, a little bit about relationships and goal setting, and at the very beginning, and it just didn't have any traction. I didn't know how to market it. I started writing another manuscript, and in fact, I was very, very inspired by a manuscript that I had written because of a movie called The Man Who Created Christmas. If you've never seen that, a little side note, The Man Who Created Christmas is Charles Dickens, who writes A Christmas Story, right? And he actually wrote about Scrooge and everybody in his office, in his home office and everything, and he was almost bankrupt. No one would fund him. No one would publish this. He wrote this crazy manuscript in record time, got it out before Christmas, became one of the all-time best-selling stories ever. And I watched that movie, and I'm like, man, that is my motivation to finally get this book out. I'd been speaking on stages, and people have been asking me for books, and I've been talking about time management, productivity, and balance in a certain sense. So I set off to write a book. And that book, actually, I still have it someplace, is a story of a man who kind of loses his way. He loses his balance, forgets about his priorities, the things that are most important in his life. And he sees a friend who inspires him. That friend begins to coach him kind of informally, and goes to breakfast like once a month or so and tries to help him change his life. And he has a series of events that really kind of knock him off his feet. And in fact, he ends up in a car accident, and his life flashes before his eyes, and then makes this great change. And I thought, this is a great book. I want to publish it. It's so awesome. And then I got to the publishing stage. And in the publishing stage, everybody and nobody wants you. The traditional publishers, they're like, yeah, line up for 2 years. We'll wait till your book. Let's see if it even has any, steam. You're going to do all the marketing. We're going to publish it, but we're going to take all the profits. And you basically are on trial, because if you do really well, maybe we'll sign another one with you one day. And I thought, that is not the way I want to go. So I looked at some hybrid publishers, and a lot of them were PR firms that really just wanted a whole bunch of money up front for them to secure, working with me and all these things. And I thought, that's not it. I was going to raise some money to do that and make it a public project. It just didn't pan out. What was interesting is it led me to actually more of the self-publishing route. And in 2020, and when everything hit the fan, I had this manuscript, and I was going to go self-publish it. And I came across a coach who was influential in my life to say, you know what? You wrote the wrong book. The reason I wrote the wrong book is I didn't invite any one of you, none of you, to be a part of this project. I didn't have a podcast. I didn't have a following on socials. I really didn't have much of an email list. I have all of those now, which is phenomenal. It's awesome. But, here's the thing. I needed input. I needed to know, what was it that business owners are really struggling with balance. I had my ideas, and I completed my PhD in family and human development. And so I was looking at this going, I know what I think balance is. I know what business owners struggle with. It's money, and this overwork, workaholic mentality is keeping people from actually making it a priority to be with their families. And yet that's the thing. Like, you cannot fix relationships. You cannot mend, those parenting foibles that you have with your kids without spending time with them. You can't, have true intimacy with your spouse if you don't make the time, not just quality time once in a while. You have to have quantity and quality. So what I got from my PhD experience was that, you really need to have this time. Well, I need to rewind just a second because I skipped a bunch. I along the process trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I ended up in the financial planning industry because they had great balance. The lifestyle was awesome, and I could help people with money, the thing that my parents and I, quite honestly, were struggling with. Long story short, the experience of being a financial advisor for a decade led me into a master's in psychology to really, really understand goal setting, stress, psychology, motivation, the things that are really weighing on individuals' minds. Yes, I learned a bit about abnormal psychology and diagnosing and various abnormalities with psychology, but I really wanted to focus on those who were hitting high, that were really achievers, high achievers in life. And that led me to also realize that no man is an island. Psychology is a study of the brain and the body and how it interacts. And so I realized that, I have all these studies, but most of them are about relationships and families and issues involving other people. So I did my PhD in family and in human development and a focus on marriage and money. I wanted to look at, individual psychology, marriage, the stress and the communication and all the problems that go with marriage and what people do really well there and how they interact, and why it can be not as stressful as a lot of business owners might encounter, right? So I kind of had the book knowledge, and I spent, quite honestly, from 2002 to 2016. I took the long route. I didn't go straight to these. I worked in between and had some life experience and tried coaching people and did the things I could in the meantime, odd jobs, and I started speaking a little bit. Anyway, nobody's path is like this. Mine is all over the place, okay? As you can, probably tell through this episode. But I will tell you that what happened to me was that I was really directed. I was directed into money, psychology, and relationships. And I have this yearning to learn and to learn from other people. So fast forward back to my coach who's like, Travis, you have a PhD. You have all the book smart. You have all the knowledge, but nobody cares. And that was a big slap in the face. I thought, well, if I just get the knowledge, then I can help people. I can help them not be overworked workaholics. I can help them in their relationship to have better marital intimacy and less stress in their family. And I can help them with their parenting so that they can raise these, successful children. That was my desire all along, so that I could also have a family life that encompassed all those things. I wanted to be a high achiever, successful. I wanted to have a great marriage and family. Those were all my desires. Crazily, I ended up in the place that I found most of these other business owners in, what I call the workaholic trap. Okay. And in that workaholic trap, it was not my design to be an overworked workaholic, but I'd come home really stressed. I would come really worried because I was trying to do everything for my family. I was trying to be everywhere and everything to everyone. And because I accepted everything and I wanted to be Superman, superhero to everything, I was slowly falling apart, and I didn't realize that I lost a lot of my health. I didn't ride my mountain bike for several years. I barely worked out. I gained like 30 pounds. I didn't feel good about myself. I was depressed often. I don't think I was clinically depressed at any point, but I maybe so. I dealt with it in unhealthy ways that led to bad habits and addiction. And I went through addiction recovery, my wife and I. And, this is something that I don't really share very often, but it was a struggle. And so I really, really relate to other business owners, because here I am trying to help them with the things that I believe they want. And that's this great balance, only to find myself stuck there. And so my coach was like, hey, you're struggling with this. You have the answers, but you haven't involved people. You haven't asked them to help you. And this is the most important part about marketing anything you're going to do is you have to get involvement. So on my birthday, March 24th, 2020, I said to the world, I didn't have this book. I just had a concept. I'm like, I've got a manuscript, but I need your help. I need to see, like, what are you experiencing when it comes to balance? What are the myths, the lies, the things, the struggles, frustrations, your concerns, your challenges, all of those things? What is it that is really causing you to have this as such an issue? Little did I know, this is the best time to ever talk about balance. As the world was shutting down for COVID, I was announcing this, and quite ironically, that night, San Marcos, Texas, you can look this up if you want to, double check my facts, but San Marcos, Texas closed down all the parks, all the main things in their city, March 24th, 2020. So here I am, knowing that we're going into a vacuum, and I thought maybe this will last a week or two, right? I'm not even going to get into COVID, but I want to just mention that had I not said, hey, I'm doing this book, I would not have been able to have the traction that this book took with me. Okay, I was riding on the tails because just a few weeks later, one of the most recognized experts in financial planning, the industry that I was targeting for this first book, reached out to me, Michael Kitces, and said, Travis, I want you to come on to my podcast, which he had 50,000 blog followers and tens of thousands of listeners. He said, I want you to be able to share your story and talk to us about this issue right now because it is so important. People are working from their kitchen tables. They are struggling with balance. And so I came on and talked about it. Even though, I had written a book on it, I have the PhD knowledge, the master's in psychology to talk about all these, psychological issues, only to find out that I had to write down 3 myths, okay? The 3 myths of balance. And, I spoke on those. I have a whole podcast, and that became this book. It became Achieving Balance. I actually rewrote the entire thing. I realized that as I started interviewing others and others wanted to interview me about balance, that I left out some key components in that previous manuscript. And it was because of this interaction. It's because I asked people, I wanted to interview them about their experiences. It also led to some client work, and it led to us doing $250,000 during COVID. In that first year, just 9 months, because I started in really April. By the end of the year, we did over $250,000 with me, myself, and a part-time, half-time assistant. And, it was crazy, the ramp up that brought. And COVID was a really hard time, difficult time for all of us, psychologically, physically, spiritually, relationally. But I was so grateful for the opportunity to let my book launch then. That led me to stages all over the world, internationally, virtually at that time, and also in person. It's been a fantastic run, and I've really appreciated that. But I know I left out in Achieving Balance the marital aspect of what I call couple development, that you really need to achieve goals long-term with your spouse. Okay, so this is really the first book. I believe that everybody can build a business with balance. And maybe that's what I should have called this, build a business with balance. Balance is not equilibrium. It is working on your highest priorities. And it is so important because that's the same type of principle that you want to have at work. You want to be productive. You want to use your time to your best abilities. Okay, and time, quite honestly, is your greatest asset. And after my PhD experience, looking at everything, you can't improve anything unless you put the time toward it. You want to improve your marriage, it's all about time. You want to improve, your golf swing, you got to spend the time. You want to improve, your ability to public speak, you've got to make the time for it. So that's when I also started the Make Time Institute, because that was the growing, the overarching, most important principle is making time. That also led me to say, well, gee, I've written this first book, Achieving Balance. I need to write another book called Marry and Grow Rich. Now, this book I've been talking about for the last 3 years. And quite honestly, it's been a long ride because we started calling it something else. We started calling it Balanced Growth, and it morphed, and then I had to pull it down from Amazon and republish it. It was a fun ride, but I think I made the right decision. Because when it comes to money and marriage, there's the psychological, there's the Think and Grow Rich aspect of the psychological, retame your limiting beliefs, your blocks, the negativity that's in your mind subconsciously, and reprogram it. So that's a big part of this. But the play on here was marry and grow rich with, go ahead and, work on this with your spouse. And I have found that with business owners, that the number one thing is they want to grow their business and they want balance. They want both. And there's a lot of voices saying you can only have one. And that to me is a joke. You can grow your business and scale, and you can have great balance in your life. Because again, balance isn't doing everything at once. It's making sure that your priorities are in order and making the time for the things that are most important. Typically is spiritual and physical health, and not necessarily in that order, but mixed up in between. Relationship with family and your spouse. Those are usually the top 3 or 4. Okay. So, if you're making time for those things, it actually lifts every other aspect of your life. It helps you at work. You have more energy, more time. You're more productive because you want to clock out and go home. You want to do things that are more important. And so you get right to work. You're not wasting time. You're not fiddling around wondering what to do. And you're very proactive at work. So that's a really great principle. But long term, I found that most business owners realize that if their wife wasn't on the same page, if she wasn't supportive of the business, and they weren't on the same page financially at home, that was a huge rift in the relationship. The other aspect is if the business team, however big your team is at work, if that team was not pointed the same direction as the business, and they are off in a whole bunch of different places psychologically with money, that they're very scarcity focused instead of abundance focused, that can also take down the business and not allow it to grow and scale as fast as it needs to. So there's really several aspects to this book, but I decided to call it Marry and Grow Rich because of the Think and Grow Rich concept. I think Napoleon Hill did a great job. He's a fantastic marketer, and he pulls out some 13 principles that, quite honestly, I have them on my shelf. The Laws of Success, that was his original work. Nobody really knows about that book, but I have that original book because I used to do coaching for the company that sold for Napoleon Hill. And I love Think and Grow Rich. The interesting thing I learned about him, though, is during the writing of Think and Grow Rich, he got divorced, and he caused the divorce of his I believe his daughter and son-in-law, who they were living with at the time. Yes, he went on to be fabulously wealthy and very famous and infamous really in this concept of Think and Grow Rich, but it's a psychological principle. It's been around for decades, even eons since the beginning of time. But what you think about, how you focus your energy, it's even biblical, right? What you sow is what you reap. Like Christ taught this a long, long, long time ago, and even prophets before have taught us about faith and hope and who you put your trust in, right? If you do that, then you can become. And so that's really the story of Think and Grow Rich. But I really want to encapsulate how married couples can not only solve this problem of communicating about money together, but really get on the same page so the business can keep going while keeping the balance that you so want and sought after. And you don't just throw that out the window. All right, so that's book 1 and book 2. In the meantime, I launched my podcast to interview those who were struggling with these concepts or who were doing great with these concepts and had content to really drive home. And I've done a lot of lives. I've done a ton of webinars about these concepts for the past 5 years. I originally called the podcast the Balance Advisor Podcast. And I was ranked very high on a lot of various, different podcast platforms in the industry. Never reached like a number 1 spot or even a top 10 spot. I was top 20. I think I reached like number 13 or 14 on FeedSpot. That said, I made a switch to focus less just on money and financial planning, but more on business ownership and growth, and repositioned the podcast to the Balanced Growth Show. What I was finding, though, is I was kind of pigeonholing myself, and every time I would write a book, that my podcast changed. And I'm like, oh, I see what I'm doing here. Achieving Balance was made for financial advisors and business owners. And so I would call it the Balance Advisor Show, right? Or the podcast. And then with Marry and Grow Rich, I realized the concept here was balanced growth. You wanted to grow your business while keeping that balance. And so I changed the podcast to reflect that and started interviewing others about that concept. Well, I don't want to keep changing the podcast name. And quite honestly, everything that happened with Charlie Kirk has really impacted my life, heavily impacted who I am and what I stand for, and exactly, the concept I talk about in my first book, Achieving Balance, about living your life on purpose, with purpose, and living that purpose as fully as possible. When my dad passed away, I was 25. He was 2 weeks shy of 50, and that changed my life. And I see that as a defining moment in the history of my life. And Charlie Kirk's, his assassination, I saw that as a defining moment too. I happened to be on vacation with my family. I've been wanting to take them, my lifelong dream to take them to Denmark, where a lot of the majority of my family comes from. We have some Irish and Scottish and English and Welsh, and I've been to some of those areas. I've been to England and Wales. I need to get to Ireland, Scotland someday. But I wanted to take my family to Scandinavia. I have a lot of friends. I still have cousins who are living. I know that's where I served my LDS mission, so I have a lot of great background there. But I want my kids to be connected to their family. It's really important to connect children with the past. They start to know who they are by where their past has brought them to. So we went on this trip, visited friends, saw some great sites in Denmark, Copenhagen, on Jutland, or Jutland as you would say in English. And then we made a trip to Iceland, which was unbelievably incredible. Like, I just think it's an unearthly place. Like, I've never seen anything like it. Black lava flow everywhere with, moss and green on top of it, with black and white glaciers and just hundreds of waterfalls that we saw, the Blue Lagoon, all these, hot springs and features everywhere. No volcanoes were active at the time, but we saw its work, and its work was everywhere. Its handiwork was all over the place. That apparently had even shut down the Blue Lagoon at one point, and I think it's happening currently right now. That said, we came back and to Denmark. We spent a few days there, and then we were going up to Norway. In Norway, after hiking, probably the most epic hike that I think Norway has to offer. I've researched a ton of them. And Trolltunga means the tongue of a troll, the troll's tongue. Is one of this epic Instagram photo places. If you see it, go check it out. It's a 6-mile hike there, a 6-mile back. Like, when it comes to strenuous, the 4-mile flat at the top isn't very strenuous, but the up and down, a couple miles going like 45 to 60 degree, it was pretty crazy, very hard on the knees, but we made it. We did record time. My family finished it in like 6 hours. So it was fantastic. We came home and I heard about Charlie Kirk. Because I was on Facebook checking news and I was like, I turned to my son. I'm like, hey, we need to go to Charlie Kirk, because we were just talking about him on the trail, literally on our hike. We were talking about Charlie because my son had some questions about his educational pursuits and his direction and goals. And I gave him some advice, and I'm like, hey, some people are saying that, college isn't worth it, but some people say it is. And let's talk about the details, because it's never just black and white. Let's talk about details. And we were having that conversation. I'm like, hey, look, Charlie's coming to our neck of the woods. We should go. We live in Utah. I'm just, 15 minutes away from Utah State University. And I have family and friends attending Utah Valley University, where I actually spoke and taught for a while there, for a couple of years actually at UVU. So I know that campus really, really well. And then, not kidding, 30 minutes later, all of a sudden I get these news, feeds and reactions. I try to, keep away from my phone on the vacation, but when they pop up everywhere and people are texting me all over the place and emails and everything, I'm like, oh my goodness, he got shot. And then several minutes later, within a half an hour, I found out he was dead. I had some time to reflect. I really struggled going to bed that night. I prayed a lot and wanted guidance and direction about what I should be doing more. What else can I be doing? How can I help? My degree at BYU, Brigham Young University, which was just 15 minutes from UVU, very conservative, very Christian. Obviously the Brigham Young University is a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like, it is their main campus, main university. We've got a campus at Rexburg, Idaho, called BYU Idaho, and there's one in Oahu that is called BYU Hawaii. And we even have a space in Israel called BYU Jerusalem Center that I don't think anybody's in there right now because of all the things happening in Israel. That said, BYU has been a big part of who I am. I grew up going there and attending functions and what they call Education Week as a kid, and really learned about the campus and learned about its functions and how we can have religious discussion and be able to learn in an environment that allows the brain and the mind to really thrive. There are a lot of great people have come out of BYU. I won't spend all my time. This is not a podcast about BYU, but it had a great impact on me. And the degree that I was trying to get through and learn was sociology. One of the most liberal degrees, and in any other campus, I probably wouldn't have taken it. I had some liberal professors. And I don't mean liberal in the traditional sense of open-minded, quite the contrary, very close-minded. In fact, I was chased out of a classroom one time because of a question. I posed a question. I wanted to learn about a certain topic that I want to go into right now. And I thought, what am I doing here? This is crazy. But I learned so much about socialism, about fascism, about true communism, about capitalism, and all of these ways of thinking, and how the society really does have an effect on individuals, how it affects marriage and family and our goals and our achievements. And I thought, man, there are a lot of social problems going on. And that was 2003, 2004, even into 2005. And I was working on becoming a financial advisor at the time. How those two work together. Honestly, sociology really helped me to understand the world in a bigger, larger sense, and help other people with their goals. I thought it was fascinating. I also worked in a lot of social psychology about how people interact in groups, and it was fascinating to learn about the systems here in the United States, our prison systems, our religious systems, a lot of the things that we are trying to utilize to help society. Many of them they're broken. A lot of our systems are broken. So that said, I think understanding socialism, capitalism, fascism, communism, a lot of these isms, and looking at your religious backgrounds and looking at the media and how they influence individuals, it has a great impact upon our minds, has a great impact upon how we act towards our goals and our money, our finances. Okay? Those who really think that communism and maybe even socialism is the right answer, they're going to react to wealth building and wealth accumulation and legacy planning in a totally different fashion than those who believe in a healthy dose of capitalism with a healthy dose of charity and giving back and philanthropy and wanting to make the world a better place because of their impact. Okay, so what does that have to do with anything that I'm telling you about? Why am I telling you this big, long story? Why am I ramping up to this? You spent, 33 minutes with me. Here's the thing. I have probably 10 other books on my mind. I have so many projects I want to get to, and I love writing for the sheer fact of getting thoughts out that I've been thinking about for a very long time. So with book number 2 published last year, I've officially ended my interviews on Marry and Grow Rich. I have officially, just kind of taken all the data and the research that I've done and said, thank you very much. This has been incredibly helpful for this project and future projects. What I started to hear even after I published the book in these interviews was this idea about entitlement and enablement. Okay. Entitlement is this idea of, well, I deserve something and therefore I must have. And if we look at society, there is a lot of entitlement going on. There's a lot of pushing people around because of what they think they're entitled to. And on the other end, there's enablement. As a parent, if you entitle your child, they're going to be spoiled, they're going to be thankless, they're going to be instant gratifiers a lot of the time. With enablement, you're going to teach your child, you're going to help them. And what does this have to do with legacy and wealth management? Everything. Because a lot of us, we become really successful in business and we really have a lot to give to others. We want to protect that legacy, so we do estate planning and wills and trusts and all the things legally. We look at our, with our tax accountant about how we can manage the funds that are coming in without paying too much to the governments and also be able to still be law abiding and contributing to society. So that's so important to most business owners I talk to. But when I ask them about their impact on their children, the thing that they've been telling me the most has been their worry, their care, and their frustration with knowing, how do I enable my child without entitling them? And if I'm actually not here anymore, even if the trusts and the wills and the estate planning and the tax planning and the financial planning all work, which they do if you set them up correctly. Okay, so they all work. Then what though about helping my child to not, if they inherit a lot of money, just blow it all and be entitled and never achieve their true potential, which is actually how you got here in the first place. Nobody gave you a handout. They may have given you a handout, but no handouts. It didn't make you the business owner you are today. So I've been interviewing a lot of business owners who have already been successful in business and life, and they've got a great marriage and good family, but they're concerned now about, well, how do I get this to the next generation without destroying them? That's it. So my very big announcement is I'm writing that book. I'm writing a book called Family Financial Freedom. Now that title may totally change. As I've seen with book number 1, this was just supposed to be balance, and we ended up calling it Achieving Balance because we wanted to, talk to high achievers about their balance struggles as being business owners. And then with Marry and Grow Rich, again, it was Balance Growth, and we changed it to Marry and Grow Rich. Probably too late, and I won't do this next time. But learn lessons, right? This is my best book so far. I love it. I love the content. I love the format. It is so easy to read. If you haven't picked this up, you can go to marryandgrowrichbook.com, pick that up. If you haven't picked up Achieving Balance, you can go to achievingbalancebook.com, pick that up. If you don't know where those websites are, go to maketimeinstitute.com, and you're gonna see where to get those books, okay? Or to travisperry.com with an A. So that said, I've got several announcements to make with this book. I'm doing this project, and if you're listening to me on my podcast live, or you're watching this back in any other platform, or in my emails that are going to hit afterwards, if you are a successful business owner and you have great balance and you are already, have a great marriage, those are not the issues you're facing, but you're concerned with, how do I get the legacy that I've built to my family, to the next generation? Maybe it's your business, like how to get the business to the next generation. Or, that's a big part of your assets, right? So I would like to interview you about your struggles, about what you're going through. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can email me at travis@travisperry.com, PARRY.com, travis@travisperry.com, and say, hey, I would love to chat with you. It's 15 to 20 minutes. I may even feature you in the upcoming book, like I have book 1 and 2. I featured a lot of those who I've interviewed, and your details are insightful to help me direct to this book. Because quite honestly, had I not, I would have published a kind of a business fable with no audience. It would have flopped. and I would have been really discouraged thinking that I'm a bad writer. It has nothing to do with the writing if nobody reads it, right? So if you're interested, please reach out to me. Let me know that you would like to be, interviewed for this project, or if you know somebody, that might be a great intro them to me, and I would love to interview them. I will have you on my list. You'll get this next book for free, and just keep supporting all the things that we're doing here at the Make Time Institute. Second big announcement. This podcast was originally introduced to you as the Balanced Growth Show today, okay? We are changing the name, so the next podcast will air. It will be the Travis Perry Podcast. Why? Well, because I've kind of pigeonholed myself into, only talking about balance or balanced growth, or talking to financial advisors or business owners about, specific ideas related to those things, it's very helpful. And I still think it is helpful. We'll still talk about these topics. But I think what Charlie Kirk's message did for me, and after watching the videos where he got shot, I'm a changed man. I've never seen anyone actually get shot, let alone how he was murdered. And I thought, I want to stand up in any way that I can for freedom and for Christianity, for my beliefs and values. So I want to serve you as Christian business owners, as freedom fighters out there. I'm going to change the name to the Travis Perry Podcast so that I can speak freely about social issues related to money. I can speak freely about issues that are related to masculinity and femininity that are completely misconstrued on the right and on the left. It doesn't matter. They're getting these things all wrong, but there's no family studies professors standing up. They care, about grades and grading and papers and research with their students, that's fantastic. But I realize I have this voice and I need to stand up more and be able to deliver things that I think are very pertinent to you, very pertinent to your business, very pertinent to your mindset and your family, and quite honestly, freedom in general. I had the book name already weeks ago when I was thinking about this, and I a lot of times will wear my Under Armour Freedom shirts, and I need to have more of those made. But this is the concept, and one of the major reasons why is because business owners care about three things when they get into business. They want time freedom, okay, which is again a great impetus to writing Achieving Balance. They want financial freedom. Another impetus into writing the second book, Marry and Grow Rich, which is all about the money and money psychology, money relationships, and scale and growing your business. They also want just freedom in general. And one of the greatest definitions of freedom is the ability to give or to receive. So to be able to give with your legacy, to receive the blessings that come from God, open-armed and ready, is a big part of freedom. So yeah, this third book I'm going to write, it's going to be about family financial freedom. It's going to have a very big component on freedom in general and how these other forms of government do not allow us to grow and scale and give. They require that you give everything to the government in communism, that you equally distribute that in socialism. And again, I don't believe in crony capitalism. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about free capitalism with a healthy dose of philanthropy and charity. That is the best way, and it is the most impactful ism in the world. All isms are imperfect. God and his gospel of Jesus Christ, that is the most impactful thing ever since the beginning of time. That said, though, I do believe that God wants us to be free. He wants us to have the ability to worship how, where, what we may. He wants us to be able to go into a church and not be fearing that we're going to be blown up that day, which has so happened to members of my church just this past weekend. I'm still reeling from Charlie Kirk. I'm really trying to keep focused, but I know a lot of us are. We're fighting this now, and it's a fight for freedom. So if you want to talk to me about freedom in any of those senses, time, money, financial, or I just said that, the legacy aspect of the financial, time, money, legacy, if those really ring true, I would love to hear from you. this is my 45-minute plea that, it should have boiled down to 45 seconds, and I probably will later, but this is my podcast, and so I can talk as long as I want here and give you some great content. The podcast will change a little bit. We're going to have, guests off and on, but I'm going to give more content from me, from the heart, from things that I've learned over the last really 25 years of education, experience, writing, speaking, coaching business owners. I want to be a resource for you that is even more helpful. So yes, book number 3 is coming, Family Financial Freedom. I'd love to interview about that. The Travis Perry podcast from the Balanced Growth Show. It will never return to another name. I say never because I'm going to hold fast with this. It's got to be the Travis Perry podcast so that I can open up on these topics and subjects and be able to educate and enlighten, because all these things are related. These concepts all are related. The last thing, we've already kind of made this as a soft change, but I've been introducing myself and even talked today on the podcast about the Make Time Institute. The name of my company moving forward, the Make Time Institute, will always be the parent company because that was the beginning. So I'm going to keep that, okay? But the name moving forward is Balanced Growth Incorporated, Balanced Growth Inc. So the website, everything has already been updated. You can go to balancedgrowthinc.com. You can see where my podcast is. You can see my speaking. You can see my books. You can see the blog. You can see how to interact with me if you'd like some help with coaching or my content. It's all there on balancedgrowthinc.com. So from here on out, we will be introducing myself on any stages and speaking engagements as the founder of Balanced Growth Incorporated. And, Make Time Institute will always be the parent company. Most of you probably won't even care about this, but I do believe this is the way forward because of the push to grow your business in balance and be able to give that legacy back. If I could go back and do it over, I probably would have written these 2 books a little bit more. On the first book, I probably would have summarized this a little bit better and put these concepts more together. But I think it has great value. There's a time management system in here, second to none, that I've learned from just all sorts of various sources that we've put together and have coached people that in 90 days have gone from chaos to productivity, from $0 to $90,000 in revenue. It's an incredible system. Highly, highly recommend it. Been following it for over 25 years now and love it, and still teach it to this day. So yeah, these are bookends, but I want to add that 3rd book. And I'm so excited. So if you want to be interviewed for that, just email me, travis@travisperry.com. If you want to be a guest on my show and you want to talk about freedom, you want to talk about financial freedom or how this relates, and you are an expert of any kind in family financial freedom, let me know. I would love to have you on this show potentially in the future. And you can email me, travis@travisperry.com. If you want to know more about anything related to my business at the Balanced Growth Inc., go to balancedgrowthinc.com. All right, guys, I know this has been a long podcast. Thank you for letting me elaborate, for getting this all off my chest, for opening up about these big announcements. And I'm really excited to deliver. I have delivered 2 best-selling books, Amazon bestsellers in several categories and countries. And I will continue to make this content available, likely self-publishing this 3rd book. Maybe not on Amazon. It might go through different routes, but I'll probably still make it available once it is. You can check me out there. If you haven't gotten my books, both of them are on Amazon. They're on my website. I've even made them available on this podcast. If you're watching live or the pre-recorded version of this after the live on any of my channels, you can again go to balancedgrowthinc.com. And you can follow the podcast or go to travisperry.com and you can follow the podcast. You can listen to both of my books for free. Just subscribe and, share it with others because there's a lot of people that need this content today. This has been so awesome to be able to share this with you. Much more is coming. I'll have webinars, I'll have speaking engagements, I'll have things that are going to be on the books here soon. So stay in touch and, all the best. And I always like to leave this podcast with saying, remember to live life on purpose together. See you guys.